Welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving into something that is honestly incredibly profound, the universal human drive to fix what is broken. It's a primal instinct, really. We're going to trace this all the way from the ancient theology of biblical prophets right up to the cutting-edge cybernetics of modern battlefields. It's a wildly fascinating journey, and it shows us just how, across millennia, our fundamental mission has basically remained exactly the same. Here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with the drive to restore, look at Ezekiel's reunified kingdom, then water, spirit, and purification. After that, we'll pivot to a modern battlefield crisis, rebuilding with bionics, and finally wrap up with the future of restoration. Section 1, the drive to restore. Okay, let's just jump right in by exploring our earliest source of this drive, which is actually rooted deeply in ancient biblical texts. To really understand it, we've got to look at how ancient people processed national trauma and their hopes for rebuilding. We're grounding this historical exploration in a theological paper from the Eleutheria Academic Journal. It focuses on the prophet Ezekiel's vision for a completely fractured nation. Now, to set the stage for you, Ezekiel was a priest exiled to Babylon after the capture of Judah back in 597 BC. He's living among Judean captives who are grieving, they're displaced, and they're experiencing severe theological disbelief. Their whole world has just been shattered. They desperately needed help, a vision of absolute restoration. Section 2, Ezekiel's reunified kingdom. So let's look closely at how Ezekiel envisioned rebuilding this divided, grieving community in the 6th century BC. It wasn't just about going home. It was about fundamentally stitching a broken society back together. The texts tell us Yahweh commanded Ezekiel to take 2 physical sticks. One represented Judah, the southern kingdom, and the other represented Joseph, or Ephraim, the northern kingdom. He was told to join these 2 totally distinct pieces of wood together in his hand to make them one single piece. This was this incredibly powerful, highly visible metaphor for the exiles. It was the literal promise of reuniting a divided nation under a single Davidic shepherd king. And this physical joining of the wood, it wasn't just some political statement. It symbolized an eternal covenant of peace. It ensured that ethnic Israel would be permanently restored to their land and purified from their past deviations. That phrase, "They shall be my people and I will be their God," that's the ultimate covenant formula. It is literally the theological definition of a relationship that has been fully repaired and restored. Section 3, water, spirit, and purification. But as we're going to see, restoration wasn't just physical or political. It required a profound internal and spiritual renewal, which actually brings us to a massive historical debate over purification. This ties into the concept of the Besorah, or the good news. According to scholarship by Hanak Ben Keshet, a lot of first-century Yeshua-believing Jews didn't see John the Baptist's water rites as just some new ritual. No, they actually viewed it as the literal inauguration of Ezekiel's specific ancient promise to sprinkle clean water on Israel to purify them. It was like seeing ancient prophecy playing out in real time. The specifics of this ancient restoration were considered so vital that esteemed 2nd century sages, Rabbi Jose and Rabbi Meir, fiercely debated them. They argued back and forth over the exact purifying effects of Ezekiel's promised water, like specifically who it could purify and to what extent, even down to the offspring of forbidden marriages. But the most important takeaway for us is what they agreed on. Both of these brilliant ancient scholars believed Ezekiel's prophecy was a literal physical marker that absolutely had to occur prior to Israel's kingdom. So the really crucial point here is that this ancient restoration promised an internal transformation. It wasn't just about stitching 2 kingdoms together on a map. It was about providing a new heart and a new spirit. The brokenness was inside, so the restoration had to be inside too. I want you to keep this concept in mind. Replacing what is broken inside with something entirely new, because it sets up a stark, honestly fascinating parallel to how we rebuild the broken today. Fast forward over 2 millennia to the current war in Ukraine. Here, we're facing a totally different yet deeply visceral kind of brokenness. Tens of thousands, that is the staggering estimated number of military and civilian amputees in Ukraine right now. It's a modern crisis of shattered physical bodies on a scale we just haven't seen in generations. Section 4, a modern battlefield crisis. We're pivoting now from ancient spiritual restoration to the brutal physical realities of modern drone warfare. The technology of destruction has evolved, and so too must our methods of putting human beings back together. The reason we're seeing this totally unprecedented wave of amputations really comes down to the mechanics of the weapons. Unlike traditional artillery or trench shrapnel, explosive first-person view or FPV drones cause incredibly high-energy blast signatures in very close proximity. These drone blasts absolutely pulverize blood vessels, nerves, and bone structures way beyond any biological repair. Limb salvage is frequently impossible. To prevent fatal systemic infections like sepsis, amputations have simply become medically unavoidable on the front lines. This horrific scale of need has forced a rapid, incredibly high-stakes adaptation in medicine. Traditional medical school curriculums, they just don't cover the nuances of complex wartime trauma management and advanced bionic integration at this kind of volume. So doctors and surgeons are being forced to rapidly modernize their education. They're participating in specialized fellowships abroad and literally learning from international surgical teams on the ground just to keep up with the crisis. Section 5, Rebuilding with Bionics. Let's move to the cutting-edge solutions and see exactly how advanced technology steps in to physically restore what these drones have destroyed. This is where that ancient concept of the new spirit and new heart takes a decidedly cybernetic turn. The modern medical journey to restoration involves 3 critical, highly advanced steps. First, obviously, surviving the initial catastrophic drone trauma and undergoing the amputation. Second, and this is where science fiction essentially becomes reality, undergoing specialized TMR, or Targeted Muscle Reinnervation surgery. Surgeons actually redirect the severed nerves that used to control the hand or foot into the remaining healthy muscle tissue. And third, because of that nerve rewiring, the patient can be fitted with a responsive bionic or myeloelectric limb. This limb reads those biological signals, allowing the person to control a robotic hand literally just by thinking about moving their missing biological one. It's mind-blowing. To meet this massive demand, Western and Central Ukraine have essentially become global epicenters of trauma care and bionics. It's a huge collaborative effort. You have massive domestic hubs like the Unbroken Center in Lviv with its 1,000 square meter prosthetics lab and the highly specialized Superhuman Center. And they're partnering with brilliant tech innovators like Esper Bionics, a Ukrainian startup whose bionic hands actually use cloud-based machine learning to adapt to a user's specific muscle patterns over time. Plus, global giants like Germany's Autobach and the UK's Open Bionics are flooding the zone with microprocessor-controlled lower limbs and 3D-printed hero arms. But, perhaps the most remarkable aspect of this entire modern restoration process is this: healing through pure lead rehabilitation. Some of the very doctors and medics who suffered traumatic amputations on the front lines and received these advanced bionics are actually returning to the hospitals. They're stepping back into healthcare environments specifically as rehabilitation specialists, using their own bionic limbs to guide new, traumatized patients through the exact same recovery pipeline they just survived. It is the ultimate cycle of restoration. Section 6, the future of restoration. As we look back at the grand scope of our explainer today, we see a fascinating, undeniable parallel spanning across thousands of years of human history. Both our ancient texts and our modern medical reports reveal the exact same fundamental human impulse. On one side, we have Ezekiel striving to take a fractured, exiled nation and make it whole through a divine covenant and a new spirit. On the other, we have modern surgeons taking a shattered soldier's body, rewiring the nerves, and attaching a microprocessor limb to make them whole again. The drive to take what is broken and restore its function, its dignity, and its unity, it's completely identical. From Ezekiel's symbolic 2 sticks being joined in his hand, to the ancient debates over the purifying waters of the Basora, all the way to modern medical leaders like Dr. Vladislav Royko using robotic surgery to restore autonomy to amputees, the tools have obviously changed completely, from ancient scrolls and wooden staffs to cloud-connected cybernetics and robotic surgery. But the fundamental mission to rebuild what was lost endures. I want to leave you with this thought to end our explainer today. We've seen that whether it's through the ancient spiritual covenants that shaped early theology or the incredible bionic limbs and nerve interfaces of today, humanity's drive to restore what is broken never, ever ceases. It's just baked into who we are. So as technology accelerates and our challenges evolve, what will we rebuild next? Thanks so much for joining me, and keep learning.